And I'll share my Rhino screen. All right. So last class, we went over how to export drawings using the make2d command. So we went over how to create plans, sections, and elevations. And so hopefully some of you were able to do this between now or between Tuesday and today, just to, get that line work created. Now today we're going to go over how to export the lines that we've created using the make2d and how to import them into Illustrator. Okay, so to do that, we'll open our Rhino file and we'll go to our top view. And our top view should hopefully have all the make2d layers that we've created. So you have all your layers over here and your line work in the top view. So let's begin. Let's just do the plans by themselves. So we'll take, for the first step to start exporting these drawings out of Rhino is to select the drawings that you want to export. So we'll just go over and highlight our roof plan and our floor plan here. And then what we need to do is we'll go to File, Export Selected. And when we bring up that Export Selected option, we have a bunch of different file types that we can save as. And so something that's really nice about Rhino is Rhino essentially exports to almost any type of file you can think of. So it becomes relatively versatile when you're trying to bring objects into different programs. You'll notice here that one of the options is Adobe Illustrator. And since we're going to be exporting these lines to work on some line weights, that's where we want to export to. So we'll just click Adobe Illustrator and we'll give it a name. We'll say plans, or I'll say Farnsworth plans. And we'll hit save. Now you'll see when I've hit save, there's this dialog box that comes up. And this is pretty important before we go ahead and finish saving out the exported drawings. So you'll see here under scale, there is the option for snapshot of current view and an option for preserving the model scale. So snapshot of current view is not the best option. That is just going to essentially take your line work, bring it into Illustrator, but it won't have any real scale. So, if you're working hopefully in MA, let's say a 1/4 inch equals a foot, you would need to go and hop over here to preserve model scale. Here under preserve model scale, we can set what our scale will be. So let's say right now, automatically it's doing 1 foot equals 1 inch. That is a bit large, so I'm going to change that to 1 foot in model space equals 1/8 of an inch. And color, RGB should be fine. And let's see, order layers. Let's select order layers. And hopefully that should preserve any of the layers that our lines are currently on. So when we bring into Illustrator, it will preserve those layers. And hatches, it gives you the option to export those as solid fills. That's generally a good option to have selected. All right, so we'll hit OK. And now we should have that exported. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Illustrator. So here's our main Illustrator screen. We'll just go ahead and go to Open. And let's go to where we saved our file, the Farnsworth plans. I will hit open and we'll just give it a minute. All right. So here is Illustrator. And we see here we have all of our lines. Now, right now it's looking like we can't see any of our objects. And that might have to do with the fact that this artboard that we're looking at right now is probably too small for how large our drawings are. So we can edit the artboard size by clicking this icon over here called the artboard tool. So we'll click that. And we see here that our width and height of the sheet are 11 by 17. So let's increase that height. Let's do 42 inches and we'll do 36 inches. See there. Okay, I'm not sure why this isn't showing up. So give me a moment to do some troubleshooting here. So I'm going to pause the recording. All right. So because this presentation for this project is going to be on a slideshow, typically when we have plans and sections on a slideshow, it's pretty difficult to maintain a certain scale. Like if we wanted to maintain 1/4 inch equals a foot on, a little 11 by 17 presentation format, it typically doesn't work out very well. You still have to shrink it down or make it bigger to properly fit on the page. So let's talk a little bit about graphic scales and drawing graphic scales. So you guys should be sure when we export these drawings to also draw in some graphic scales here, because that will help you when you go to create your presentations. If you have a graphic scale on your drawing, you can scale it up or down to any size as long as there's some information telling you what the scale information is. So let's just draw a pretty simple graphic scale. We'll start at 0 and we'll just draw up one with a polyline. So going back to Rhino, we'll just start here and I'll turn ortho on. And let's say we want to do our graphic scale in increments of 5 feet. So I'll do 5 feet, enter that. And I'll go up a certain amount. And let's say the next one is an additional 5 feet. Yeah, we'll just do increments of 5 feet until we hit, let's say 20. That should be good. Another 5 feet.
Oh, we can't see your screen. I don't think you're sharing it.
Oh, sorry about that. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so going back to our Rhino screen here and drawing our graphic scale. Like I said, we'll just be doing increments of 5 feet. Something I can't see with my zoom in the way. All right, so we have 5, 10, 15. That should be enough for now. So the next thing we can do is we can add some text. We could use the text object, for example. And we can type in here 0, hit OK, and select a point where we want that text to appear. Really, really tiny. Let's do 1 foot. All right, so there we have our 0. We can move that here. And we'll do similar, we'll do 5. This is our 5-foot line. This will be our 10-foot line. And we'll do another one for 15. Okay, so we have some graphic scale information here. So now, unfortunately, we're having some issues exporting to scale. So I'll look into that and redo this demo at some point so that you guys can hopefully get your drawings exported to a certain scale as well, because that'll be helpful to know. We'll do that process again. We'll go to export selected while also having that graphic scale exported as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and save over one of these. Hit yes. And we'll do snapshot of current view this time. So can you guys see my Illustrator screen when I switch over to it for those of you who are on Zoom?
No.
Okay. Okay, so here we are in Illustrator. I'm just going to go ahead and reopen one of these files. Should be this one. Okay. All right, so now we have our plans imported into Illustrator. All right, so we have our plans, we have our graphic scale, and you'll see over to the right here, we have a wide range of layers. And so these layers are actually the same layers that you should have seen in Rhino. So that helps to keep all your information organized when you go to edit some of these layers. So this blue layer right here is actually, let's see, line work, visible, clipping plane. This looks like the glass, any walls or glass that the clipping plane was cutting through. The clipping plane at the column, the clipping plane at the mullions. So we could start renaming some of these layers. That way it becomes a little bit easier to understand. So we'll say, we'll just call these different layers like glass. This one was the columns. These were the mullions. And these were our walls. Okay, so if we turn all of that off, you'll see that these are the layers that when we exported in Rhino and made that 2D, these were the layers that that clipping plane was cutting through. So what we can do in order to stay even more organized is we can create a new layer at the top here, and we'll call this clipping plane. And we can move these layers into this clipping plane layer. That way we have a main layer and a bunch of sub layers, and that could help us stay a little bit more organized in our file. So now the rest of these lines here are what you'll see here is called line work visible. This visible layer was basically anything that was sort of cut below or was existing below that clipping plane layer. So I would, yeah, definitely recommend going ahead and renaming some of those layers to something that is a little easier for you to go back and understand what those layers are. Okay, so right now we're looking at our plans here on the Illustrator screen, and it's hard to gauge how large these images or these vectors actually are. So what we can do is we can go to View, and we could turn on our rulers. So if we go to View and, yep, rulers right here, we can go ahead and select Show Rulers, and that goes and shows us how large our artboard actually is. So again, we're working here with an 11 by 17, which for the purposes of, let's say, the presentation or a slideshow presentation should be fine. So let's actually rotate this 180 degrees, the artboard, so we have a little bit more room to make these plan drawings as large as possible. So to rotate the artboard, we can go back to our artboard tool, and we can go ahead and just go ahead and click the portrait symbol, and that will automatically change the orientation of the artboard. Now I'm just going to go ahead, select my drawings, and scale them up. And I want to be sure to hold the shift bar so that all of my objects retain the correct, size ratio to one another. If I do not hold shift, my plans start to get warped, and we don't want that. If you want to make sure that we're working at a certain scale, we can also drag out some rulers. So those of you who are familiar with scaling drawings in Photoshop, this would be a similar process where you can drag out from the rulers. You just go here and select the ruler, click, and drag. You can align that to your ruler up above. So let's say, let's get our plan here or our graphic scale to be in line with that ruler we just drew. And we can drag out another ruler. Let's say, okay, so we want to say 1/16, or sorry, 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. So here we have, looks like these are split into 16ths. So I'll drag this over here. Yep, looks right. So if you actually, I should have maybe modeled in a 1 foot increment, you would be able to select everything that you've drawn. Or what I'll do right now is that I know, okay, I'm saying that each 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. So maybe I'll draw this ruler and I'll extend it to be, okay, so we have 1/8, would be 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, and 5/8. So this distance between this line and this line that I've drawn in Illustrator should align with 0.0 and 0.5 on this graphic scale. So now I'm going to just go ahead and highlight everything except for that line I just drew. I don't want to accidentally scale that. And I'll go ahead and increase by just going ahead and using their transform tools and increasing the scale of this drawing. So we're almost there. All right, that should be good enough. Okay. So now I'll just go ahead and I'll go back to my artboard tool and I'll extend the extent of my drawing. So now we know that this drawing is now, not only do we have a graphic scale, so when we export later, we can just shrink it larger or smaller for our presentation, but we also know right now in Illustrator that our plan is 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. Okay, so how do we start editing line weights? Well, actually, before I get started, does anyone have any questions? Okay. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be feet and inches. I'm sure you can go ahead and change the units. So if you go and right click on your rulers, you'll see here that there's options to change it to millimeters, centimeters, or meters. So if you want to do the same, it's the same idea when you go to scale with your graphic scale. It just depends on what sort of unit of measurement. So you can change that if you're working in meters. Yeah, so I just right clicked. So you see the ruler up here on my screen. I right clicked on it. And when I right click, all these units of measurement pop up. Okay, great question. Oh, that was you guys telling me you couldn't see the screen. Okay. All right, so now we have our drawing scaled. Let's start working on some line weights. So the nice thing about organizing the layers for which ones were the clipping plane was cutting through is now we know that each of these layers, since that is our plan cut, we know that all these layers, lines within them should have a thicker line weight because that is what's being cut through. Anything that happens below the cut line of the plan should be a lighter line weight. So to change the line weight of all of these lines uniformly and quickly, I can go ahead and select every line in these layers by going to my layers up at the top right here and selecting this little circle. So by selecting the little circle, I select everything that's in those layers, and you'll know that it's selected because you'll see it here on your screen that there's a selection box around it. But you also see in the layers on the right-hand side, all these small squares that indicate that everything is selected. Okay, so now that I have that selected, I can go ahead and play with the line weights. And we play with the line weights by using the stroke options. And I can just go ahead and click stroke here. And I can assign a line weight to these lines. So I can go ahead and let's start with a 1-point line. Or maybe we could go something even more. Let's go straight here to the line weight options. Let's do 3 points. So you see here, I'm increasing the line weight. Let's stick with, I guess we'll stick with 2 for now. And we probably don't want to maintain these layer colors. So we can change that by using our line options over here to the left-hand side of the screen, where we see this slash and this box with the question mark. So what do these two things mean? For those of you who aren't familiar with Illustrator, this box up front here is indicating the fill. And so when we see the box with a red slash through it, that indicates that there is no fill happening on with our objects. So that should be fine. If I double click on the box with the question marks, the box with the question marks actually, oh, there we go, there's my color palette. The box with the question marks represents the actual lines themselves and what line weights are to be applied. Right now, it's currently showing as question marks because we have several layers selected, and each layer has a different color line. So I can go ahead and change those lines to black by double clicking it and using my eyedropper tool here, or just selecting the darkest color possible. So I'll just go hit OK, and all those lines have now changed to a black color. And so now I'll go and select on my other lines everything that's being shown beyond, except for my lights layer is actually my, don't want that one. That's my graphic scale layer actually. So I'll go ahead and change the line weights of those as well. So let's be sure to select black again. And these are items that are beyond the section, or sorry, the plan cut. So we'll just go ahead and select a lighter line weight for that. Now you see that by organizing layer, we start to have hierarchy of information. So the darker lines are things that are getting cut through, and the lighter lines are things that are shown beyond. For a roof plan, if you're doing a roof plan, you're not required to, but depending on your house, maybe you think the roof plan is important. You might want to show some hierarchy by selecting some lines, mainly. So with the Farnsworth house, we know that this is the main living space and this is a platform entryway. So this exists beyond. So what's in plan view, what's closer to us is actually the roof plane. So I can go and select these lines. And if I turn this layer off, let's see what happens. So this is actually a scene silhouette. That's essentially every single line that is an outline here of my roof. And so I can go ahead and select all those layers and increase the line weight again, for example, maybe 0.75. And that gives it a slightly higher line weight. Might even go to 1. Than the rest of the items. Does anyone have any questions about that so far? I think the Farnsworth probably isn't the best example because it's such a simple building that there isn't really a lot to work with. You guys have probably modeled to a greater extent your buildings. For example, I know Bao has probably modeled in some doors. So for example, we would need to put in some doors again and stuff like that. But some of that post-process work might rather happen in Rhino than happen in Illustrator. Because drawing in Illustrator honestly isn't the easiest. It's easier to draw architectural floor plan sections and elevations using your Rhino model and using the Make 2D and the line commands in Rhino before bringing it over to Illustrator. So I'll stop sharing and I'll stop that recording.